folks, welcome back to another episode of Your Questions, My Answers. Here we are with episode 20, and we got a little something different going on tonight. As you can see, I'm doing the introduction. Unfortunately, Jerry couldn't be with us. Sad story, but kind of funny story. He's got a wedding to go to, and he's actually leaving town tomorrow. And he was telling me that his wife was telling him, you need to get your suit cleaned, you need to get everything ready to go. And Jerry waited until the last minute, took his suit to the cleaners, and they lost it. So he spent all day running around looking for a new suit and tried to get it tailored. And he ended up being tied up all day. He's not going to be able to be joining us tonight. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and read off Jerry's his standard disclaimer, and that pretty much goes as it always does. So we reserve the right to be wrong, and we rely on you, the viewers and readers, to correct us when we make a mistake, or to just let us know when you think we're completely off base. And we've got a correction to make later on tonight, and I have John to thank for that. He commented on episode 19. So. And we also have a guest tonight. We have Chris, aka CD from Cigar Live. So, Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you came to be a member of Cigar Live?
Just basically, I'd been listening to a bunch of podcasts. Been doing so for about a year or so, and heard on the Dog Watch that they had stopped by and seen this pretty cool new podcast, website. And Cigar Live was the name of it, so I figured, what the heck, I'd give it a shot. And I'd been a member of a couple of different cigar boards, and bounced back and forth, checking them out all the time, but never really got very involved. So right off the bat, the owner, Daniel Stogie, he hopped on and sent a couple of messages to me, and before I knew it, I had messages from a bunch of guys saying, "Hey, glad to see you," and "What's going on?" And we started chatting, and the next thing you know it, about a month and a half later, I've been on there pretty much every day, 5, 6, 7, 10 times a day, or just had it running, while I was at work. And it's one of those things that just sort of caught on real quick. And about 2 months into it, Stogie had been looking for a couple of moderators, and he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said sure. I thought it'd be pretty cool, and there's a bunch of really good guys that he asked as well, so I felt pretty honored to do it. So I said sure, I'd love to, and it sort of snowballed for me from there. Basically, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I came to join pretty much the same way. I just kind of heard about it, stumbled onto it, and then went to check it out, and was just hopelessly addicted ever since. I check it 5, 6, 7 times a day, and just have a great time. I mean, the people are real genuine, nice people there. It's really refreshing to see a place like that where you don't get lost into the shuffle, or you don't kind of fall by the wayside because you don't belong to a little kind of side group or a niche, or a clique. It's a real nice place.
I agree. I always felt welcome right from the beginning there, and that's one thing that just sort of kept me coming back, and I haven't left since. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, let's move right along and start answering some questions here. Segment 1 is sponsored by Dogwatch Cigar Radio. As you mentioned, you've heard Bob and Dale mention Cigar Live before. We're all big fans of Dogwatch here at Stogie Review. And, Bob and Dale bring thoughtful conversation, considered opinion, and a touch of insanity, right live to your desktop. So definitely give Bob and Dale a listen if you're not already a current listener. And that brings us to question 1. This one comes from Rich through the AOL Instant Messenger service. And Rich says, do any of you guys know what the difference is between the JR Ultimate and the JR Ultimate cabinet lines? So, Chris, do you know anything about the difference between the two JR Ultimates?
Well, I guess we were looking over this a bit earlier. I guess from what we're able to discern here, it looks like the cabinet is really the big deal is it's available in dress boxes, and the standard edition or the standard line isn't. I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if you have any other info on that, Walt, but from what I understand, that's what the deal is.
No, I've bought JR Ultimates before, but never by the box. Always by the 5-pack. So I never really knew what the difference was, other than a couple of dollars per 5-pack. And just kind of looking at JR's website, the best that I can come up with is that you're right on here with the standard line coming in, just standard run-of-the-mill cigar boxes, and the upper echelon cabinet line coming in, the more unique and cosmetic dress boxes.
Yeah, and there's a good amount of cigars that really kind of do that. They make the dress boxes for the cabinet line all along. So, the ultimate cabinet, I guess it just sort of makes sense.
Now, have you heard anything as far as anything in a dress box being aged longer or allowed to sit for a longer period of time before being shipped? I always kind of was always curious about that, because it was just hard for me to believe that the only difference could be the box. But it's very possible that it is just the box.
I think back in the old days when they were, I think presentation played even a bigger role back. If you see some of the cigar art that you look for in boxes, etc., people collect them. The cabinet box was really kind of the selling point, because cigars are really cheap to make. So I think that that sort of played over, and the only ones that I know of, and I have limited knowledge compared to a lot of people, but the only ones that I know of are like the upper echelon, like the Ashtons and the Fuentes, that they tend to age their stuff a bit longer, and they put it in really nice dress boxes to begin with. So that's the only thing that I can think of coming right off the top of my head.
Well, Rich, I hope we helped you out here. Between Chris and I think we just kind of put together our collective knowledge and just discern that the cabinet line just comes in a dress box. No, there's not a whole lot more to it.
Okay, this comes from Tommy via MySpace. He asks, is the H2000 and the Habana 2000 wrapper the same? He said, my local guy told me that the Habana 2000 is a special wrapper, but he didn't explain to me why.
Well, actually, I really wasn't quite sure the answer to this question, so I did a little bit of research. And one of the interesting things that I came up with was, and I learned this through cigarenvy.com, was that what makes the Habana 2000 name special is that it's actually trademarked by Lou Rothman. And the difference is that the H2000 is not trademarked. So, from what I understand, without the permission of Lou Rothman, you cannot put Habana 2000 on the outside of your box or advertise your cigars as such. But there's a whole controversial thing on there. There's also some quotes by Rocky Patel that says that it's perfectly fine to use that name, the Habana 2000, as long as you're not calling your cigar a Habana 2000. You can say that it contains such and such tobacco inside, and I thought that was pretty very interesting. That sounds really good.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean that's kind of an interesting thing, kind of quirky. Well, I'd sort of, you and I were talking about it a little bit, and I looked up, and I seem to remember that Tehran, you had used some of the H2000 stuff, and I found out that in fact, they used it on the Exodus Gold. So it's the only cigar that I could think of that actually, that I smoked that I liked that had H2000 in it, or Habana 2000. And I don't think they really marketed it that way at all. I mean, I took a little digging to find it out, but it's kind of an interesting thing that Lou Rothman would be all up in arms about that.
That's it. It's interesting that you talked about that cigar, because I've had numerous Tyranno Exodus Golds, and I had no idea that it had that wrapper on it. I mean, I really have never seen anything that pushes that wrapper, or it's just it's interesting. The only cigar that I'm aware of that has that wrapper on it that I've had in the past is the Maria Mancini line, the Magic Mountain Habana 2000 wrapped Maria Mancinis, and I thought they were pretty good cigars. Nothing. I don't ever remember anything really popping out about that wrapper any more so than a Corojo wrapper with a spicy flavor to it.
Right. Yeah, me either, really. I mean, I didn't even think about it until you'd really asked the question. Kind of interesting.
I did a little more digging, and I found in an old issue of Smoke Shop magazine, it comes from the March-February 2000 issue, it goes on to say that Habana 2000 tobacco is a hybrid of Cuban seed, and it's actually a cross between Corojo tobacco and cigarette tobacco. And what happens is it makes it a hardier leaf. It's less susceptible to rot or disease, but it makes it very difficult to grow. And most people attribute bad burning characteristics to that particular leaf. And I also saw that Nestor Plasencia from Nicaragua is actually coined for creating this hybrid tobacco. And I thought it was really interesting. A great question. Glad that it popped up.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, it's a really cool question. Made me think a little bit, which is always a good thing.
Well, before we get too far off base here, I'm smoking an Oliva Serie G Maduro, and I know you had mentioned you were smoking a particular cigar. Why don't you tell us what you're smoking and give us a little bit of information about that cigar?
Sure. It's it's a J Fuego. It's a Corojo #1, and I've had a couple of these over the last couple months. I used to live in Atlanta, and I went to a place called Smoker's Paradise, and the other local place that I go to, which would be Blue Habana 2, they had them in at separate times. So I picked up a couple of the Coronas, and when I moved to North Carolina, there's a couple times where I was traveling about 4 hours, and I wanted a really nice but short cigar, something that I wasn't gonna ash all over the place, and I could still keep in my mouth while I was driving. So I picked up a couple of those, and man, I just absolutely loved them. I just think they burn great, they taste great, which is the main thing, obviously, and they're just for me it was like a big find. And I know that Jesus Fuego is one of Rocky's rollers, and it really, or his I'm sorry, not roller, but blender, his head blender for a while there, and he made really a really good cigar. I really enjoy it.
Well, you set off a light bulb there. You had mentioned Rocky Patel's roller. Is that the same person that blended the vintage 1990 and 1992 by any chance?
I believe it is. I wouldn't quote me 100% on it, but I think it is. That's what I heard, at least. And it wouldn't surprise me, because they're really just top of the line type cigars like those are.
Yeah, you said the name J Fuego, and I knew it, but I couldn't think of where I heard it from. And I was speaking with Jerry last week, and he had mentioned that he picked up a couple of 5-packs of this cigar by the blender that made the vintage 1990 and 92. And I think you both checked out the same cigar. I'm going to have to look into it. It sounds very interesting. What was the price point on those?
These were somewhere, I think it was right around $6.50, $7, something like that, for the Robustos. I've seen them for a little bit more expensive, but I think I got a good deal on these, which is a good price point. I mean, it's in there. It's right down the line with a lot of the Rocky Patels, even some of the the Tatuajes, the white and the red bands. They're really good. I enjoy them. if I can get more of them, I will.
Alright, well that brings us into question 3, and this question comes from David, and it's through YouTube. And David says, I just smoked my first cigar a few weeks ago and was hooked. I stumbled upon your site and wanted to see if you can offer any general advice to the new smoker. So Chris, what do you recommend for the new smoker? What do you like to tell the typical new smoker?
Well, I guess, my big advice would be don't limit yourself. If you don't have a lot of money, look online, go to your local shop, talk to your local cigar guy, and ask him, hey, what do you have that I'd be interested in? And don't just go with that one either. Get a bunch of different cigars. Look to try to experiment a bit. I think I was saying before that when I first got into cigars, everybody's telling me, you want to try the natural ones, or you want to try the Connecticut to start off with. And I tried a couple, and I realized that I like them, but they were way too mild for me. So I stepped into smoking a bunch of Maduros, and the first Maduro I had was a Super Fuerte from Rocky Patel, Indian Tobacco, and I loved it. And I got a bunch of those, and then I started experimenting with some of the Fuente line, and moved into the Oliva line, and I just kind of took it from there. And I said, man, there's so many cigars that you can smoke, and the only way really you can figure it out what you like is to try a bunch. So I'd say don't limit yourself, and try a bunch of different cigars.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to fall into that stigma that a good cigar is an expensive cigar, because you'll really be amazed when you try some of the bargain cigars where you're spending about $1.50, $2 a cigar. You might really be blown away by some of them. There are really some fantastic cigars out there, and don't think for a second that you have to spend $10 to get a good cigar, because that's certainly not the case. And to go a little further on what you said, Chris, it's interesting because I did things sort of like you described. I went online, I started buying cigars from there, and I was able to get a good variety. But I missed out on the whole local cigar shop experience, and I really wish I would have gone to the cigar shops and spent a little more time there in the beginning, because after I got a little more experience with cigars, then I started going to the cigar shops when I had a better idea of what I was looking for. But that's when I met some of the greatest people that I've met so far that smoke cigars. I mean, the crowds that hang out in the cigar shops are everything. They're friendly, they're intelligent, they're funny. It's just a great time to be around them. And I spend every Friday afternoon in a local cigar shop here in Reading. A couple hours just smoking cigars, laughing. Sometimes I go home and my face is sore because I just sat there and laughed for hours and puffed on cigars, and it just ended up being a great time. You definitely want to get into that a little bit. Go to your local cigar shop and kind of get your feet wet, get to know someone, and just have fun. It's a fun hobby.
Totally. I mean, part of the whole thing with cigars anyway is like the community. And guys talk about brotherhood, and there's a bunch of women that enjoy cigars. There's a sisterhood there too as well. You go in there, and like you said, I hang out here with a guy on the boards, Webmeister, and I met him on the board. He literally lives 2 miles down the road, but I never would have met him if I hadn't have gone to the cigar shop on Friday afternoon. And man, he's taught me a whole bunch about various different cigars that he likes, and I think that's part of it. You'll start talking to different people. They'll like different cigars, and before you know it, you've got a bunch of different cigars to choose from and that you enjoy, and you find out what do you really like. So that's pretty much it. I'm 100% agreement with you.
Yeah. Do you hang out with any of the other guys from the cigar boards? A guy that I met at a local cigar shop, Bulls. His name's Dave. He's also the Oliva cigar rep. But I met him, and I didn't realize that he lives about 10 minutes from my place, and we hang out at the cigar shop from time to time, and it's a great time. But I always find myself just scouring the introduction sections to cigar forums to see who's in the area, because they seem few and far between. I only run into people from the boards, maybe once, twice a year. It's unfortunate. I guess I live in a slow area where there's not a whole lot of cigar smokers. But.
Well, Yeah, it happens. I mean, I guess it really depends, like you said, on where you live. But um, there's a couple of cool cigar places around this where I live now, and there's a decent amount of guys that you can count on to be there. Now, I'm not like tight friends with every single one of them, but I definitely hang out with a couple guys, and Mike Webmeister's one of them. And when I'm in Atlanta, we had this big deal back at work. We go cigar smoking on Fridays, and we do it outside, and we called it. After a while, we're out in the parking lot after work all the time, and we called it the Blacktop Lounge. Actually, yeah, it was pretty funny. Actually, one of the guys that works in a floor above us, he was outside. He goes, "What the heck are you guys doing? And can I join?" I'm like, "Sure." Everybody's like, "Sure." And they gave him like a bunch of cigars. He was like, "What?" He goes, "Man, this is like a cigar lounge." He's like, "Yeah, it's like the Blacktop Lounge." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, that was just it. We just hung out and had a great time, and it didn't really matter where the heck we were." But yeah, I mean, cigar smoking is all about having fun and sharing it with other people. So that's for me. I mean, that's the biggest part of it.
Well, Ben, I hope we gave you lots of information. We certainly hope that we got the point across that this is a really fun hobby, and there's a lot to learn and good times to be had. And definitely jump right in. Don't be shy.
All right. Well, let's see here. The next question is from Ben, and he's chatting with us on Yahoo Instant Messenger. He says, number one, you guys rock, which is cool. Yeah, you guys do rock. He said, being a beginner, I just bought the same humidor that Jerry bought. The guy at the local store told me not to place my cigars directly in the wood, and that I should put newspaper or a paper towel down first. This sounds odd, and I've never heard you guys say anything about this. Is it safe, or do I need to put something down first?
Well, I agree with him. That sounds kind of odd. I could maybe understand the paper towel, but the newspaper, I'd be worried about ink transfer. Because you have humid cigars and you've got leaf on top of the ink. But I think the only way this sort of makes sense is if you wipe down your humidor to season it, and then you're kind of loading cigars in right away. But aside from that, I don't quite understand exactly what you gain from doing this. You have any idea?
The only thing that popped into my head is maybe that the guy had gotten some bad information and told Ben this before. Maybe somebody had said it to him, thinking that the wood's gonna suck some of the moisture out of cigars right off the bat. And I think really, if you season your humidor properly, either or leaving a little tray of distilled water in it for a good amount of time, a few days to a week, I think your humidor is going to be the wood is going to be fine, and there's not going to be a worry about, taking moisture out of a cigar or anything like that. I mean, most people that I know age their cigars in, Spanish cedar, and do it on purpose. So I really, that just doesn't make any sense to me that you'd want to put anything in between your cigar and the wood, other than maybe, somebody thought, hey, it's going to take some of the moisture out of them, but that doesn't make sense either. So that just seems like it's a bit bogus to me.
Yeah, it's wow. I saw that question and I looked at it in a completely different light. My thought was that the cigar was going to pick something up off the humidor, and that's why there was a barrier. And I think that what you said makes absolutely perfect sense. Is that if it's dry, the humidor could by all means pull the moisture right out of the cigar, and maybe that's what the idea of the barrier is. But I think you're right on here. I don't think there's any really need to do this. People age cigars in cedar for a reason. There's no real reason to separate it. So I think that you just got a little bit of bad information, or maybe the person that informed you got some bad information, and that's typically how it goes. Someone gets bad information, they pass it on, and before you know it, everyone's got it, and it's the new trend. But yeah, I would say try and avoid that. I don't think there's any need to put any kind of barrier down for your cigars. Well, that brings us to our first production break, folks. So we're going to take a quick break. I'll be back with with Chris, and we'll get down to answering some more questions. We're having a great time, and looking forward to keeping on here. When your questions, my answers.
All right, well, welcome back, guys. Coming back off the production break, and this segment here, segment number 2, is sponsored by Cigarmany, where luxury cigar accessories and apparel is their business. Cigarmany has been kind enough to give us a coupon code here for 5% off your order, and it's the coupon code is SR2007. So if you want to hop on there and help out Cigarmany, you get 5% off your order. So that's pretty cool. All right, cool. So let's see here. We can launch right into the next question if that's good with you all. All right, let's see. Question number 5. It's from Joe via Stogie Review fan forum. Hey guys, have you guys ever smoked a cigar you didn't like at first, but upon trying it again, you later did?
Yeah, the first cigar that comes to mind that I had that I absolutely hated was La Gloria Cubana Maduro. I bought a couple of 5-packs of these from JR Cigars. They were very inexpensive, and I tried the first one, didn't like it. I tried the second one, and I didn't like it, and I just kind of stayed away from them for a while. And a couple of months went by, and I came across them again in my cooler, and I decided that I wanted to smoke through these and just get through them, so that I could have space for more cigars. And I tried them again a couple of months later, and I found that I really liked them. They were so much better after they sat, for a couple of months. And I still smoke them today. If I would have given up on them that first time, I'd have lost out, because they're one of those cigars that I do enjoy, and and they're very affordable too. So that's always a big plus when you're looking at cigars that you smoke on a semi-regular basis.
Totally, hell yeah. I mean, you got to have your go-tos, and that's a real good one. That's an awesome one. I was trying to think myself if I had one, and I remember just actually this morning I like the Fuente Hemingway series, and I mean, shoot, everybody or a lot of people like that series of cigars. I remember the first time I smoked one, somebody gave me I think it was a classic that was looked awesome. I was like, wow, this is the first time I've ever seen a cigar like this, and I tried smoking it, and you don't cut the end. You light the little nub there in the end, and it started off real good, and then it stopped. It was plugged. It got real bitter, and after probably not even 2 inches, I just had to put it down. I'm like, I don't understand why everybody's talking about these things, because this was awful. And about 2 or 3 months later, somebody said, hey, look, try this. It's a short story. It's a small one. And it's different. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'll try everything once. And I picked one of those up, and I was in heaven, absolute heaven. And I had a cup of coffee in the morning, and it was just outside of Starbucks, and we were walking back to work, and it was awesome, absolutely awesome. And to this day, I mean, I got to have some of those Hemingways or short stories in my humidor, because I'll just want to go out there in the morning with a cup of coffee and have one. They're great. Love them.
Well, let's put you on the spot here. You ever had a cigar that was completely opposite that? You had one, you thought it was fantastic, and then every other one after that was just terrible.
Ooh. Well, I guess I gotta couch it, but I mean, I love Tatuaje cigars. Absolutely love them. But I think one of the first red label, I get one of those, the Hermosa 6, is that what they are? I can't remember. Anyway, I had one of the red labels, and I loved it. And I got so pumped about them, I bought a 10-pack, and I think I got them online. I'm not going to say where I got them from, but I got them, and they looked like they were great. I had my humidor for about a month. I let them sit there, and then I smoked one after the other, and every single one of them just tasted bitter, or just wasn't, didn't really float my boat. And so I'm kind of off on those right now, but I mean, who knows? I always say there's a minimum 5 cigar rule for me. So if I smoke 5 of them and they're awful, I'll usually wait a while before at least going back and if somebody gives me one. But I won't. I'll definitely not, write anybody off until I at least smoke 5 of them. So that's one. And not, sorry about that, Pete Johnson, but I love the rest of your cigars. Honestly, I do.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've never actually had that experience. I've never had anything consistent. There's been a couple that I had one and I thought it was great, and the second and the third one weren't so good, but the fourth one was right back on the money again. I've run into some inconsistent brands, but nothing that's just been extreme. It's been good for the first one and just lousy for the rest.
That's the only one that really comes to mind, to be honest with you. And it's just that it's funny when you said it. It was like, oh yeah, there's one. But I mean, I can't think of a cigar that I just didn't liked at first and then swore off. Really, I mean, and to be honest with you, I haven't sworn those off either. It's just gonna take me a while before I go back to them.
Well, that goes a long way to show that that consistency is very good among the cigar industry for the most part. Your chances are, if you pick up a cigar, it's going to be very consistent to the next one you smoke, and the one after that, and the one after that. And the only exception being your personal taste changing. So, it's nice that there's a good quality throughout, or a consistency throughout.
It's one of those things. It's like it's market driven. I think. There's just with the boom years, there it's sort of after the boom died. Everybody was like, look, we got to go back to what, the classic styles, and the bigger companies were the ones that survived. But, I mean, now they recognize there's a market out there. You just gotta be consistent. And if you make cruddy cigars, you're not going to be in business for too long. So, I mean, that's job number one for any cigar manufacturer, is trying to be consistent.
Well, Joe, I hope that answers your question. I think it stirred up some interesting discussion here, and that puts us on to question 6, and this comes from Mitch through YouTube. And Mitch says, do you guys consider yourselves aficionados? If not, what do you think makes someone an aficionado? So Chris, are you an aficionado?
Well, if by aficionado you mean that I read Cigar Aficionado, I'd have to say no. It's one of those coined phrases or catchphrases that everybody kind of throws around. To be honest with you, I really don't know what it means, other than, am I a fan of cigars? Yeah, I mean, big time. Is it a hobby of mine? Oh, I'd have to say yeah to that as well. Yeah, when you're starting to spend, your spare change on cigars and not on food, then I'd have to say that, yeah, that's pretty much, I guess that makes me a fan or aficionado. I just think that term has just been used over and over and over again, and people tend to use it with cigars just because I think of a magazine with the same name. But does it describe me as being a fan of cigars? Yeah. So I'll say yes, I'm an aficionado, and I'm a fan. I like cigars. It's my hobby. It's part of my lifestyle. So all that stuff kind of rolled into one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, if we're looking at it in a sense of, am I a person that enjoys cigars and that finds cigars very interesting, then certainly, if that's the definition of an aficionado, then sure. But if that's not the definition, then no, I'm not an aficionado. I think that term gets overused by people that really aren't into the hobby. Like if your Uncle Fred says, "Oh, you're smoking a cigar, you're an aficionado, aren't you?" I think that's a lot of time where that term comes from people that really aren't involved, in the cigar business or into the cigar hobby, because I think you'll find that most people that are into the hobby, they view it in a whole different light, and they would just tell you, well, no, I'm not quite an aficionado, because the first thing that comes to their mind is, guys like Orlando Reyes and Julio Eiroa, these people that do it for a living. It's their passion. That by all means, they're aficionados, and I can't compare. I can't hold a candle to these guys. They're incredible.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. I just think that it has that connotation of being, sort of upper crust, hoity-toity, or it means you got a lot of money, because I think some people would associate people who smoke cigars with, the top, 5% income bracket type of deal. But I'm definitely not that, and, I enjoy cigars, so whatever. I'm a fan. Love them.
Yeah, I'll stick with that. I love them. I'm a fan. Well, sounds good to me.
All right, cool. Let's see here. We got one more, another question here. Number 6. It's from Mitch via. Oh, sorry, that was it. Sorry, it's from Peter via email. It says, "I'm thinking of starting a blog of my own, not just about cigars, but just journal blurbs, and I was wondering if you guys could share some advice so that I could be as popular as you guys." Yeah, that's going to be tough, though, guys. These guys know what they're doing. Now, how do you handle negative comments if you get any? That's a good question.
Well, how do you become as popular as us? Well, I don't think we're as popular as most people think. We've been out there for almost 2 years now, so people tend to type in stuff in Google and our name pops up, and I think it's people start to see that over and over again, and that's how we gain popularity. As far as advice, have thick skin, because you are going to get some nasty emails, horrible comments, and definitely get yourself set up with some kind of spam system, because it's not going to stop. And I'm sure that you can relate to this, Chris. I don't know whether you have a blog or not, but you're a moderator at Cigar Live, and I'm sure you see all kinds of junk come through there. Certain times of the day. When the robots get moving, and what do you do to get through the day there?
It's one of the things. I think, like you said, you just gotta. If you're gonna do it, obviously it has to be a passion of yours. And when I first saw Walt, you and Jerry do your first review, or the first review that I saw you guys do, I was taken. I said, wow, these guys really love what they're doing. So number one, I think you got to have that. You got to have a passion and a love for what you're doing. And pretty much, if you have your priorities set straight, that if somebody gives you crap, so to speak, or tries to tear you apart, you just have to have a thick skin about it and let it roll off and take it as positive criticism if you can, and if not, then just have to say, you know what, okay, fine, leave it. But when it comes to like Cigar Live, most of the stuff that we see is just like spam or bots, or people just try to sell you Nokia phones or stuff like that, and that's a lot easier to just hit the delete button or remove that thread or whatever. But just from my experience and seeing how you and Walt and the new guys you've got going on handle themselves, it's obvious that you have a real passion for what you do, and that you mean what you say, and that I think goes a real long way. When I tune in and watch one of your reviews and listen to one of your reviews, I know that I'm getting the straight scoop from you, and I know that you guys are actually taking the time to smoke the cigars that you talk about, and not just kind of regurgitating information that you read off the boards or off the web in Google. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and you really have to keep that in the front of your mind, that it's a hobby and it's fun. You don't want to overwhelm yourself or get yourself overworked, and don't take the negative comments the wrong way. They do come in, they are a reality, but the positive comments and the constructive criticism far outweigh the just outright nasty stuff that really has no reason to be there. So just have fun with it. Take your time, get set up the way that you want to be, and have at it. Just make it something enjoyable. Make sure that you enjoy it and have fun doing it. Well, that brings us to question 8, and this one comes in from Gerald via email, and he's got a question for you, Chris. And he says, "What do you think makes Cigar Live so successful? Also, what are you guys doing to prevent from becoming like Club Stogie, where there are way too many people and new smokers get lost in the shuffle?"
Well, that's a good question, and I wouldn't want to rag on Club Stogie at all. Actually, I'm a member there too, and I like that board. I think though, with Cigar Live, Daniel Stogie, he really wanted to get a place that people could feel, homey in, and it's hard to do, but I think the way he did it is he tried to grow it small and start out with a word of mouth type of a thing, as opposed to doing a heck of a lot of advertising or trolling places on the board, etc., or on the web. Sorry, trying to pull people in. It started out slow and it's built up, and I think what you have now on Cigar Live is a bunch of people that want to keep coming back, and they want to be there and have fun and interact. And Stogie's done an awful lot to foster that. And he said to all the mods when he first asked us to be mods was, hey, we want this to be a place that everybody's welcome at, and regardless who they are, their race, color, creed, whatever, what kind of cigars they smoke, which is, on a cigar board is a big deal for some people. Even whatever kind of cigars they smoke, make it a place that people can come and share. And man, I think he's really got a winner with that. I remember him saying, after the first couple of weeks, he goes, I envision a place where people are sending bombs all over the place, and in 6 months I want to be able to see everybody having fun. And I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I mean, if you go on Cigar Live, there are people sending cigars to each other from all over the world now, and for what other reason other than just to share them and have fun. And so that was the main thing, and I think, like I said, Daniel's done a good job of fostering that atmosphere. And he's doing some cool stuff on the board too. He's got, one of the cool things is he's got a lot of the manufacturers that have their own space, and allow them to talk about their cigars, about what's new, and to field questions, from average people like you or I, and do it in a controlled but frank talking atmosphere. And I mean, that's pretty darn unique. You don't really see that often, and a lot of times, that's a paid for type of thing, or people think that they gotta pay money, and therefore they're going to tell you what they want to tell you. But I think if you go on Club Stogie and you start asking questions of, say, Illusion or Illusion cigars, you ask the owner a question, he'll answer you, and he'll get back to you, or Bob from Bucanero. It's such a cool thing to be able to ask a question about a cigar manufacturer and get a frank answer right back, and everybody there gets to talk about the cigars and their experiences. So for me, I mean, I think that it's all about the atmosphere, and I think that everybody there is the people that keep coming back. And right now, it's like we're over 1,000 members, and I'd have to say that probably 30, 40, 50% of those members are constantly there. Not just like every other day. They're like constantly there. At least that's the way it feels. And I know that if you talk to Daniel, he'd give you the full stats, and I don't have those to give you, but. It's one of those places that just fosters, creativity and a lot of sharing. So I think that's it. He didn't want to get too big.
Yeah, a little more on Club Stogie. I don't think that Club Stogie is better than Cigar Live or worse than Cigar Live. It's just different. The atmosphere is a little different, and Paul Schoberg, the creator, I believe he started that board 7 years ago. So I mean, it's been around a long time, and it's massive. And I think that's where some people get kind of lost. I mean, there's such a huge member base that if you don't post on a regular basis, you just kind of get washed out by all the other people that are posting, but not on a regular basis. So no one really gets to know you until you kind of contact one another direct, and you start to interact that way. I think you're right in that. I think Gerald is right in the sense that as a new person to the forum, if you don't keep on top of it and make your presence known, that you can start to fade away. But it's no fault to the board. I mean, it's just the fact that it's just so big. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, who knows in the next 7 years what Cigar Live is going to look like? I mean, I can sort of imagine it, but I don't know for sure. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more people there. But again, I have to go back to Daniel and his vision. And one of the I forgot to tell you, one of the really cool things that he's added is a concept of having like some state moderators, and these are really people that are going to drum up activity on a state basis and a local basis to make more people feel welcome and to get more people involved. And I think that's really cool. I mean, that's an interesting idea that I don't think other people have really gone with. I mean, you'll see HERFs happening on any board. People get together because they want to, but I think these guys, the state reps, are there to really drive interest and to let people know of all the events that are happening in their certain locale, and to taste cigars and tell people about them in their area. So I think that's pretty cool. It really gets more people involved, and I think on a local level.
Yeah, I just read about the state moderators just the other day, and I thought it was an incredible idea. I mean, we've already set up something for Pennsylvania. We're going to meet up here in Reading. We've got from Buddha. I think he's from West Virginia. He's down south. Yeah, he's going to come up. He's got a wedding to go to, so he's going to come up and hang out here in Reading. We've got Silent John from out in Plains, Pennsylvania, who's going to come out, and it's exciting because we went from in this area not really getting a chance to meet other people from the boards very often to now all of a sudden we have this outlet, and it's going to be happening very soon. In 2 weeks we're going to be meeting up to have some cigars, and it's going to be a great time. I can't wait. And just to kind of go a little further on another thing that you mentioned, the cigar manufacturer outlet there is, I think that's a great idea. I love it. I love the idea that I can go on there and ask a question, and for instance, I had some questions on Oliva cigars, and right away Sam Lucia jumped in and answers the question. Dave Wagner jumps in and answers the question. These are cigar reps, and I asked a question about the Padilla brand, and sure enough, Ernesto Padilla posts on there and answers my question, and I was just blown away by that here's an outlet where it's nice and easy. You post a question in a public forum and they get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, how cool is that? I mean, I don't know of too many places where you can do that, really. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know of any other ones, at least the stuff that I'm involved with, I just think that's the neatest thing in the world. You got people that are willing to take time out of their day to chat and talk about their product. That's pretty cool.
Well, Chris, that brings us to our next production break. I don't know about you, but I'm having a blast here.
Oh yeah, me too. It's great. I'm glad to finally get a chance to chat with you and do it, kind of live. Like it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a great time. But we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back for segment 3, and we're going to have some more fun. So I'll see you in just a sec, folks. Well, folks, welcome back. Here we are with segment 3, and this segment is sponsored by Top Hat Cigar. And if you head over to tophatcigar.com, you'll find some decent prices on some good cigars. He has some really nice prices on the CAO line. So when you get a second, head over to tophatcigar.com and support the people that support us. And that brings us to question 9. And this comes from Jeff through MySpace. And Jeff says, we all know how Jerry is such a Rocky Patel whore. What kind of whores are the rest of you? So Chris, Jerry's a Rocky Patel fanatic. I mean, the guy smokes anything put out by Rocky Patel. What about you?
Right off the top, I'd have to agree with Jerry 100%. I mean, if I'm hanging out, I want to have, most of the time, I want to have an edge, I just love them. I can't get enough of them. They fit, they're right down the middle of my taste profile. And, I have to say, yeah, I'm a pretty much Rocky Patel whore. I love Fuente too, so if I have the cash to go out and splurge and get some nice Opus every once in a while, I will do that, or Anejos, man. But that's, for everyday stuff, Rocky Patel is my guy pretty much.
I feel the same way about Oliva. I tried a Serie G Maduro a little while back, and I fell in love with it. I think it's a fantastic cigar, I think that it is, the absolute perfect cigar in the afternoon for me. In between 11, 12, and 1 o'clock, if I'm smoking a cigar, I want a Serie G Maduro. And, I feel that way about a lot of the line, too. I mean, I really enjoy the O's. The V's are very good cigars. Just overall, I really like Oliva cigars and the other cigars that they produce as well. The El Cobre is an Oliva product, and I think that's a fantastic cigar too. Before I got really into this Oliva kick, I was smoking a lot of Camacho cigars, and I like that stuff too. I mean, they tend to be a little soft, sort of like underfilled, but the draw is always good. They always put out lots of smoke, and I just love that heavy Camacho flavor.
I can't disagree with that at all. I mean, I love, the new triple Maduros are just like ridiculous. So, geez, I don't know if I want to revise my earlier statement, but I love those. I mean, I think, you came up with, Oliva and Camacho. I mean, shoot, it's hard finding, bad cigars they make. I don't think they make any bad ones at all.
Well, Jeff, I hope we shed a little light on that. We just love some of these cigars. And that was actually our last question. The rest is we've got some discussion planned. But first, I actually have a correction from last week. We were asked a question about a person who moved the humidor from the basement up to their first floor, and they had some relative humidity fluctuations. And I was incorrect in my answer, and John was kind enough to correct me and put out some good information. So here is John's response, and he says, in fact, Walt was wrong in this episode about the humidity question. He was right in that higher temperature has higher possible humidity, but the question was pertaining to relative humidity. When he brought his humidor from the cooler basement upstairs, the temperature increased, which increased the total possible humidity. Since passive humidity devices keep the absolute humidity constant, the relative humidity goes down, which is what he experienced. If I were him, I wouldn't worry about it, since the absolute humidity will be the same, just at a higher temperature. That, of course, is if he is comfortable with keeping his sticks at a higher temperature. I would use a desktop upstairs for convenient supply, and keep a larger one like a cooler downstairs for longer aging. So, John, really appreciate you clearing that up for me. Now we know that we got someone out there listening that's that's making sure we're on par with everything.
Oh, you got people listening, all right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that makes sense now that he explained it in that way. It definitely makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. After I read it and think about it, it's it's right on. I really appreciate the extra added information there. Well, we're all finished with corrections and questions. Let's just kind of shoot the breeze. What do we have going on at Cigar Live? Anything new and exciting going on, with the exception of the new state moderators?
Well, shoot, you just took it. No. I think there's something new that's happening all the time. That is really the big deal. The state moderators and trying to get more people involved. I think on the site from a grassroots type of thing. I have to say that's the biggest thing. Stogie's doing a good job of trying to make the site grow at not at a ridiculous rate. He wants people that are psyched about being there and want to be there repeatedly so that they have fun. And he's not trying to go overboard and getting tons and tons and tons of people to come on the board just for the sake of saying I've got a big board. So he's taken it in slow steps, and I think that the big things are that he did a little bit of reorganization to make it a little bit easier for people to locate topics. So that may be something that we want to speak about a little bit. That is a big deal. The state moderators, and those are the things that really come to mind. I don't know if you've seen something, Walt. You can feel free.
No, the big thing for me was the state moderators, as I had mentioned. I'm really excited about that. I can't wait to get to hang out with some of the guys on the boards, and I think it's a great outlet for everyone to kind of come together and just plan on having a good time. Now, in being a member of Cigar Live, I got to talking to Heather Weibel. She was on the Dog Watch a little while back, a few times actually, and she had mentioned starting her own business, opening a cigar shop in Texas, and she had planned on opening this e-commerce business with the hopes of taking the proceeds and helping her along and establishing her local cigar shop. And we got to talking a little bit, and she was very generous and offered all the Stogie Review viewers, readers, everyone that checks out Stogie Review, she offered them 15% off whatever they order. And all you have to do is use the coupon code Stogie Review when you place your order, and she'll knock 15% off your order. I thought that was great.
Cigar Live at all, you've sort of seen her talk about what she's been doing, and also on Dale and Bob show on the Dog Watch, for the last year or so, she's really nailed down a target of making her own store, and she's done a great job with it, I think, as well. It just launched, so it's pretty cool. I mean, to somebody have that type of passion and wherewithal and desire to do it, it's kind of neat, and she's got an interesting take on how to do it too. So it's a cool place. You should definitely check it out.
Well, moving along, have you? I should say have you, but we'll just go right into discussing it. Over the last couple episodes, I've been doing this my question, your answer thing, which stemmed from a blooper where I actually said, welcome to my question, your answer, or this concludes my question, your answers. And someone caught me on it, and it just kind of stemmed into this whole little side thing that we're doing. I ask a question, then I wait, and we get responses through my voicemail system, and we play them on the show. And every week, like clockwork, Carlos has been calling in. He's been the only one that actually leaves a message. Every week, I get a couple of people that are just a couple of seconds of silence, and then you hear click. So Carlos has been toughing it out. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to Carlos's response, let's take just a second now, and we'll play Carlos's response to my question last episode in regards to what cigar would you hang out of a cigar shop, get in line and just stand in a crowd to wait for. So here is Carlos.
Hey guys, it's me, Carlos, once again. Just finished watching your episode 19, and my answer would be definitely a Dom Pepin cigar. It seems like everything he rolls is gold. So I wouldn't say camp out, because I'd have to come up with one hell of an reason for leaving in the house to camp out in front of a cigar. I'd have to give a good reason to my wife why I'd be doing that. But a quick story, a couple of months ago, 2 months ago, I was down in Florida and I smoked a pre-release Ashton San Cristobal. Fell in love with that cigar. I was waiting for that thing to finally come out in my local, driving by my local, stopped in, and the guy was putting out 3 boxes of the San Cristobal. I picked up 5 of the Robusto, went home. Later that afternoon, I know that there's somebody else there on the shift, so I went in again in the afternoon, picked up another 5 Robusto, went back later that night, picked up another 5 Robusto and 5 of the torpedo-shaped size cigars. Went back the next day, saw that no one had, purchased any, and I just kept doing this until I finally bought out an entire box of the Robusto size. And so right now I am sitting on a box of the Robusto size San Cristobal and about 10 of the Bellicoso shaped. And if I hadn't done that, this guy said that he wasn't going to get any more of these cigars, probably like December, January. So that was my little way around picking up a bunch of these cigars. But yeah, definitely a Dom Pepin cigar. It would be something I would get up nice and early and beat everybody to. All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Well, folks, that was Carlos's response, and he had an interesting story about the Dom Pepin new San Cristobals and how he got a hold of quite a few of them. As far as what I would stand in line for, it would take a lot to get me to stand in line outside of a cigar shop before they open, anticipating a release. But I think if another cigar came out like the Serie V from Oliva, I would be outside of my cigar shop waiting for it. I was fortunate enough to go to 2 of those pre-launch events, and I thought it was a fantastic cigar, and I certainly wasn't disappointed. So, going with the trend of how nice the products are with Oliva, I think that I would stay outside and wait for my cigar shop owner to open up the door to let me in to buy one. What about you? Is there anything that you would stand out in the cold or out in the rain for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. I mean, some of the ones that you enjoy, I really do. Like, you know, the Camacho line, and of course, all the Oliva stuff. I really like. A lot of the Maduros, the Serios, those are great. As far as like the new cigars, like I really am enjoying this J Fuego, and if they had an event down here, I would stand in line for that. The new Illusions. Those things are amazing cigars, and they're really tough to find right now. Those I would stand out line for. So those are the 2 that pop right into the top of my head right now.
Well, that brings us into this episode's My Question, Your Answer, and here's a good one. At least I think it's a good one anyway. So we'll just kind of go right into the story here. Fictional, completely fictional. So this hasn't happened to me, unfortunately. But you walk into your cigar shop to buy some cigars. You're a regular, right? You go in, you buy some cigars. You're standing at the register. You know, the owner of the cigar shop's tallying up your order, and he happens to say to you, "Hey, I got tickets to this cigar event. It's a big event, big time event up in New York City or in Las Vegas or wherever the case may be, and I can't attend. I would like you to go." And you get to go. It's going to be a big time event, but I want you to conduct an interview, and you're going to spend an evening at the table with such and such cigar family. You know, cigar manufacturer of your choice. You know, you get to sit down all night and just have fun with them. And he gives you a list of questions that he would like you to ask. And at the very end of the list, it says, "Question of your choice. What would you like to know about this cigar family or about this cigar manufacturer?" And you know, would you ask him a cigar-related question? And if so, what would you want to know? And a personal question, what would you want to know? So if you had your choice to ask any one cigar manufacturer a question, you know, any question, what would that question be?
Geez, man, that's a tough one. Yeah, wow, you put me on the spot, Walt. Now, I have to say, you know, I want to ask them. You know, you hear a lot about manufacturers and how they go about putting their cigar from, you know, the idea of growing the tobacco, aging it, and then blending it, and then coming up with the right blend. That whole thing. I would ask them what would be their favorite part of the process. You know, I think that, you know, you hear a lot about, you know, the Fuentes. They were talking about, you know, the Opus X, you know, how it was very difficult to grow the wrapper, you know, in the Dominican that they wanted to use, and that was a big deal for them. So that was a part of it. But I want to know, you know, what part of the whole process really sort of makes them happy, or is their favorite part. That's what I'd want to know.
Well, that's a great question. I'd be interested in knowing that from just about any cigar manufacturer. I mean, the whole process is just so personal that I'm sure you're going to hear, you know, such a wide variety of stories and all kinds of information just to back up that answer. And yeah, I think that'd be really interesting to know. Well, Chris, that about does it for this episode of Your Questions, My Answers. It was I had a great time, and I really look forward to having you on again. I thought it was a blast, and you know, definitely something we need to do again. We'll get Jerry in the mix, and you know, we'll have fun again.
Great. Yeah, well, I had a great time, Walt. It's you know, you make it easy.
Well, folks, as always, we really appreciate everyone, you know, taking the time to watch the videos, post comments, you know, send emails. Keep all your emails, questions, comments coming. We really need the extra input for future episodes of Your Questions, My Answers. And that about does it. You know, we really appreciate you taking the time to watch, and happy smoking.
Thank you.